Egil impatiently awaited the first sign of spring and the chance to go to sea in a longship and go raiding. An elder brother owned such a ship. When he began to recruit men from the villages, Egil joined him.
In spring, they started preparing a big longship, and as soon as everyone was ready, off they went.
The skill of every warrior would be tested anew in the months at sea. Young Egil himself was embarking on a voyage that would change his life. The word Viking means men of the inlet. As boat builders, these men were unrivaled. By late in the 8th century, when the Vikings swept down upon the monks at Lindisfarne, the Scandinavians had developed a craft that would change history. Whether 60 feet long or 120, a warship's keel was carved from the stout trunk of a single oak. With a broad hull and a shallow draft, such ships penetrated far upriver and could be beached almost anywhere. Water, usually a barrier that kept enemies at bay, became for the Vikings a highway to invasion. To them, their vessel was a creature unto itself. They gave it names like Long Serpent and Raven of the Wind. Christian monks indeed saw snakes and dragons flying through the air. Overlapping planks of oak or pine were nailed, pinned, or lashed to the hull. The planks were caulked with tarred animal hair. In rough seas or rainstorms, the ships remained watertight. Under sail, these ships could make 10 knots. Against the swift longship, there was no defense, for the Vikings had mastered not only the element of water, but of surprise. A French monk lamented,
"The Vikings overrun all that lies before them, and none can withstand them."
Before long, Egil had risen to command his own ship.
Once it was manned, they went plundering that summer in the Baltic.
During long stretches at sea, Egil and his crew would pass the time playing board games, such as Capture the King. In their sea chests, the men also carried a number of personal items, not the least their combs.
English women appreciated the Nordic men because they combed their hair, washed every Saturday, and changed clothes often.
After making many raids and winning a great deal of loot, Egil sailed into the Baltic to Courland, in what is now Latvia. For 2 weeks, he and his shipmates traded peacefully. Just as suddenly, Egil changed tack and sailed away to resume plundering.
One day, Egil and his comrades put in near a large estuary that lay beneath a vast area of forest. They decided to go ashore and divide into groups, each of them 12 strong.
The men took up their weapons and headed inland. Egil carried an iron sword more than 3 feet long called Adder, a sleek serpent that unleashed death whenever it struck. It was light enough to wield in one hand, but strong enough that it would not shatter against a shield. Like most Vikings, Egil prized this weapon above all others. Some swords were thought magical, made by dwarves, or bestowed by Odin, god of war. In poetry, the blade was celebrated as the fire of battle and the lightning flash of blood. The poorer members of Egil's crew carried a short battle axe, simple but deadly.
He swung his axe and crashed down on Thrain's head, splitting it down to the jaws and spilling his back teeth onto the ice.
Warriors who could afford to wore an iron helmet, which, despite legend, was never horned. The wealthy girded themselves with mail, made of thousands of interlocking links. And every warrior carried a round wooden shield. The most feared Vikings, even amongst their own comrades, were the legendary berserkers, or bearskins. Named for the bear or wolf skins they wore, these men were endowed with gifts from the gods, powers thought to blunt swords and stop the flight of javelins. From these fanatical warriors, we have the word berserk.
Egil had walked through the forest with his 12 men. Not far away was a farmstead, so they made for it. And on reaching it, they charged into the building. I've borne the blood-stained sword and bitter spear shaft, the raven at my right hand. As we raiders strove forward, burning for battle, we made their barns blaze. Gory at their gates groaned those fast sleepers.
The slumbering farmers were killed in their beds, their possessions looted.
Each man gathered his own load and carried it out. Egil picked up a big jewel case, and with that under his arm, he went with his men towards the wood.
Egil's ship continued on its trail of terror.
Late in the summer, they sailed for Denmark to lie in wait for trading vessels and plunder wherever they could.
So it went, stealing treasures of silver and gold from helpless monasteries and taking slaves from coastal villages. But having amassed great wealth, Viking raiders sometimes chose not to fight, but trade.